Right, so one of these things that's recently come out from President Trump's new term in office are these tariffs. What's going to make things a lot more expensive. It's going to wreck the economy altogether, not just in the US, but across the world, because it affects international products coming to America and that. So let's see what's going to happen now. So on the campaign trail, President-elect Donald Trump proposed sweeping new tariff policies that economists say would stoke inflation and hurt the US economy. The Tax Policy Center and Peterson Institute for International Economics predict the typical US household would pay roughly $2,600 to $3,000 more per year due to higher prices. So that's a big increase. President-elect Donald Trump won Tuesday's presidential election with absolute disgrace, partly by addressing Americans' economic anxieties over higher prices. Yeah, and he doesn't give a fuck about the economy. Yeah, you still voted for him, didn't you? Nearly half of all voters said they were worse off financially than they were 4 years ago, really. The highest level in any election since 2008, because that's when the global recession was, wasn't it? According to an NBC News exit poll. But the cornerstone of Trump's economic policy, sweeping new tariffs on imported goods, like from China and some other places, would likely exacerbate, I don't know how you say that, whatever that word is, the very Biden-era inflation Trump lambasted on the campaign trail, according to economists. There's still more uncertainty around how and when such tariffs might be implemented. If they were to take effect, they would likely raise prices for American consumers and disproportionately hurt lower earners, economists said. The typical US household would pay several thousand more dollars each year on clothing, furniture, appliances, and other goods, estimates suggest. It's bad for consumers, said Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's, whatever that means. It's a tax on consumers in the form of higher prices for imported goods. It's inflationary, he added. He and other economists predict the proposed tariffs would also lead to a job loss and slower economic growth on a net basis. The Trump campaign didn't immediately respond to a request for comment from CNBC on the impact of tariffs or their scope. How Trump tariffs proposed still might work. A tariff is a tax placed on imported goods. Tariffs have been around for centuries. Really? Okay. However, their importance as a source of government revenue has declined, especially among wealthy nations, according to Monica Malaco, an international trade expert and assistant professor of economics at the University of Southern California. Now, the US largely uses tariffs as a protectionist policy to shield certain industries from foreign competition, according to the Brookings Institution, a think tank. Trump imposed some tariffs in his first term on washing machines, solar panels, steel, aluminium, not aluminum, and a range of Chinese goods, for example. The Biden administration kept many of those intact. However, Trump's proposals from the campaign trail are much broader, economists said. He has floated a 10% or 20% universal tariff on all imports and a tariff of at least 60% on Chinese goods, for example. Last month, the president-elect suggested vehicles from Mexico have a tariff of 200% or more, and in September, threatened to impose a similar amount on John Deere if the company were to shift some production from the US to Mexico. To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff, Trump said, really, at the Chicago Economic Club in October. It's my favourite word. It needs a public relations firm. How much tariffs cost consumers? A 20% worldwide tariff and a 60% levy on Chinese goods would raise costs by $3,000 in 2025 for the average US household, according to an October analysis by the Tax Policy Center. Trump's plan would reduce average after-tax incomes by almost 3%, according to the tax think tank. Additionally, a 200% Mexico vehicle tariff would increase household costs by an average $600, TPC said. American consumers would lose $46 billion to $78 billion a year, in spending power on apparel, toys, furniture, household appliances, footwear, and travel goods, according to a National Retail Federation analysis published Monday. I feel pretty confident saying tariffs are a price-raising policy, said Mike Pugliese, however you say that, senior economist at Wells Fargo Economics. The question is just the magnitude. The reason for these higher costs, tariffs are paid by US companies that import goods. The vast majority of that additional costs is to pass on to American consumers, while only some of it is paid by just US distributors and retailers or by foreign producers like Zandy of Moody's. Philip Daniele, president and CEO of AutoZone, alluded to this dynamic in a recent earnings call. If we get tariffs, we will pass those tariff costs back to the consumer, Danielle said in September. The US imported around $3.2 trillion of goods in 2022, that's a lot. For example, said Olivia Cross, a North America economist at Capital Economics. A back of the envelope calculation suggests a 10% across-the-board tariff would be roughly equivalent to a $320 billion tax on consumers, Cross said. Billions, trillions, Of course, the financial fallout likely wouldn't be quite that large, Cross said. You sure about that? Trump's plan could boost the strength of the US dollar. I don't know about that. And there may also be tariff exemptions for certain categories of goods or imports from certain countries, all of which would likely blunt the overall impact, Cross said. A 20% universal tariff and 60% Chinese import tax would also generate about $4.5 trillion in net revenue for the federal government over 10 years, according to the Tax Policy Center. The administration could take tariff revenue and redistribute to households via tax cuts in some form or another, explained Pugliese of Wells Fargo. Trump has proposed various tax breaks on the campaign trail. Additionally, tax cuts enacted by Trump in 2017 due to expire next year, and tariff revenue may potentially be used to extend them, so should Congress pass such legislation, economists said. However, the typical US household would still lose $2,600 a year from Trump's tariff plan, even after accounting for an extension of the 2017 tax cuts, according to analysis by the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Yeah, it's going to make them even more poorer, particularly like the lower class, working class, and that. Not good at all. The US economy would also likely suffer due to other tariffs, cross-currents, Sandy said. While US companies that financially benefit from protectionist tariff policies may add jobs, the total economy would likely shed jobs on a net basis, Sandy said. This is because countries on which the US imposes tariffs would likely retaliate with their own tariffs on US exports, hurting the bottom line of domestic businesses that export goods, for example, Sandy said. Yes, so it's not just America that's going to be affected. It's the whole world that relies on trade and travel and whatnot. And these tariffs. Higher prices for imported goods would likely also lead to lower consumer demand, weighing on business profits and perhaps leading to layoffs, he said. In June, The tax foundation estimated Trump's tariff plan would shrink US employment by 684,000 full-time jobs and reduce its gross domestic product and measure of economic output by at least 0.8%. Capital Economics expects the Trump administration would introduce tariffs and a curb on immigration. Of course. You got those mass deportations, which is another thing. In the second quarter of next year, the group said in a note Tuesday night. Together, those policies would cut gross domestic product growth by about 1% from the second half of 2025 through the first half of 2026 and add 1% point to inflation, it said. That's good. Everything's going to go, woo! Completely bad. Very bad. Yeah.